So I'll just go ahead and get started. Welcome everyone who's here and anyone who listens to this recording. My name is Ichi, and I am really honored to share some information that, a lot of you have been asking me questions about, what's the future of work? I'm looking for a job. I'm trying to enhance my career. AI is here. What am I going to do? And so I wanted to set up a few sessions just to talk through what the future of leadership looks like, and more specifically for people who are looking for jobs, who are looking for career change. What does that mean? What are the skills that are required for you to be able to not just advance yourself, but to actually survive and thrive in this new environment? So I have two sessions. I have one today, which is happening right now, April 18th, 9 a.m. And then I'm going to have one on Tuesday, April 21st at 9 p.m. And so what I want to introduce to you is the notion that for you to survive and thrive in this environment, there's a few things that you need to do in order to upskill yourself. There's a mindset shift that we need to take, and then there's a strategic shift that we need to take. So I will not wait for additional people to join because I know time is valuable for all of us, and so I'll just get started. So why are you guys interested in what's going on here? Well, one is I receive a lot of DMs, a lot of messages, a lot of LinkedIn requests from people saying, look, I'm being ghosted. I'm a job seeker and I'm tired of just sending these applications and no one calls me back. And then there's some of you who come and say, well, I feel like I'm stuck. I'm ready to be part of that group of decision makers versus just the people who are executing. And then there's people who say, well, I've done this for X number of years and I'm ready to shift. I want to take advantage not just of the AI environment that's there, but also I just want to change. I'm a nurse and I want to be in tech. I'm in tech, I want to be a nurse. I'm a business analyst and I want to do, web development or anything like that. So I think part of the challenge that a lot of people have is in this notion of career shifting. How do you pivot from one industry to another without having to start over? Hey, Titus, thanks for joining. And then there's the income optimizer. So the income optimizer is that person who knows that they're worth more than they're currently getting. They're ready to command a better salary. They know they deserve a better salary. And so they're trying to figure out, how do I get to be that person making all this money and taking advantage again of the opportunity that AI affords? And then there's the people who are thinking ahead, right? There's the people who understand that AI is here and they want to leverage AI as a force multiplier, not just for them and for their families, but also for society as a whole. So I think from what I've received in terms of DMs, calls, emails, these are the buckets that I see a lot of people being in: job seekers, corporate climbers, career shifters, income optimizers, and then just those people who want to take advantage or leverage AI as a force multiplier. So what's the solution? The solution is simple as it sounds. You need to stop settling and start leading. You need to go from execution to leadership. You need to go from being a doer to being a decider. And how do you do it? Stop playing it safe. Stop playing it safe. Second thing, the way things were done in the past are not going to be the way that we do things in the future. The world has changed and you need to change with it. You need to leverage AI and master modern leadership. Note, I did not say you need to learn AI. I didn't say you need to master AI. I said you need to leverage AI. And I know there's a lot of people who, some of whom have never really used AI and some who are really good at using AI. So I'll talk about that entire spectrum to make sure that everyone is covered with this. And then most importantly, don't get left behind. You need to claim your future. You claim it, you state it, you claim it, right? If you don't claim your future, you will be left behind. So, having said that, I want to spend quite a bit of time talking through who I am, what I've observed, and hopefully by the end of this session, you will feel much better about the position you're in. And more importantly, you'll have a good roadmap for where you need to go to. So let me tell you a little bit about me. So I like painting this picture because, people say, "Hey, Ichi, you must have been a very special guy growing up." No, I was just a normal guy. I like defining myself by my names, Kamanu and Ichatha, right? Kamanu apparently is, my Ruka really was a happy-go-lucky guy and used to wear one earring. So apparently that's how his name came. And then my great-grandfather was really bitter. He was always annoyed. And there's a tree called the Moshada tree or something, and that's where Ishada came from. So Kamano and Ishada are slightly unique names, but apparently that's where they came from. So growing up, I grew up in the city in Nai, and like most of us, spent holidays in the rural countryside. On my mom's side, my Wuka had 8 wives, and so I had like 47, 50 uncles and aunties, and I have hundreds of cousins and probably thousands of nephews and nieces. So very normal upbringing, nothing really special. I was a regular kid, always curious, lived in flats. So, guys of the neighborhood, always fighting, always pranking, always breaking windows, always making jwala balls and all of that stuff. So very normal guy. But I think one of the things that I look back at that were very important in forming me was my leadership, right? I played in the, high school soccer team. I was the rugby captain. I was a middle and long distance runner. And I think that really formed a sense of responsibility and leadership at an early age. I took the risk, like a lot of you who have come to the US, took the risk to come to the land of milk and honey. This was over 30 years ago. And, I remember the humbling experience of working in fast food and being told to go out and sweep. And it really, in me, gave me the desire that there's more to life than just, cleaning tables, sweeping, taking orders, filling up ice and drinks. It was just really humbling experience. Drove from California, which is where I initially landed, to Atlanta, where I've been for a really long time. Got married, started a family, and I was very lucky to have people come and surround me. And I think that top right picture represents the immense amount of responsibility you feel when you start a family and when people from home come and they're looking to you to be a shining example. And so I think, like most of you, you have a lot of responsibilities, and that's probably why you're listening to this, or why you're here, is because you're trying to figure out how do I ensure that I can step up to my responsibilities financially and through work. So I think the top layer just kind of talks about who I am as a person, and just to introduce myself to you as being just an average guy. I didn't go to MIT, I didn't go to Stanford, things like that. I think the bottom portion is where I want us to really spend a lot of time talking. I had a deep desire to finish college by all means necessary. My kids laugh at me because they say, "Dad, you were in college for like 10, 15 years?" I'm like, yeah, it's taking breaks, trying to decide what I'm going to do, no chums, so the reality of life in the life of an immigrant in the US. But ultimately, I was able to get all my degrees, from my associates in psychology to my telecommunications management degree to my master's in internet technology, and ultimately a doctorate in organizational behavior. Now, why am I bringing these things up? Because when we talk about upskilling and when we talk about credentials, those are some of the non-negotiable things that are going to really help you with your career. Whether you're in school right now, even if you're in high school, or you're in college, or you're early career, mid-career, late career, today in 2026, there's a lot of credibility around the education and the upskilling you have. Let me digress for a second. I hear a lot of people say, well, but Mark Zuckerberg did not finish school. Well, Sergey and Larry did not finish school. Well, Larry and Sergey were in Stanford doing their PhDs. Like, are you going to compare yourself to them? Mark Zuckerberg was in, I don't know, was it Yale or Harvard, already in school. Are you going to compare yourself to them? Bill Gates, Microsoft, was already a very accomplished scholar. Are you going to compare yourself to them? They're not average guys. And you have no idea the privilege that they had for them to be able to get to the point where they can make those decisions. And by the way, they were extremely smart, right? Now, if you want to use those as exemplars and say, I don't need to go to school, I'm just going to go out and start my incubator and start my business, all kudos to you. But that is not the average guy. The average guy needs to go to work, needs to feed their family, and needs to sort of follow that professional route. But I'll talk about that later. So my point is, today, in 2026, there's a lot of credibility given to academics. There's a lot of credibility given to upskilling. So as I wrap up about me, I do want to bring out the two things that are really important to me beyond, family and stuff is my community. My community is my passion, whether it's my Kenyan community where I'm from or my inherited community in the US. So whenever they feels like there's some injustice of sort, I jump in. And my purpose is built around this, is built around Rosesha, which is empowerment. And the idea that you can create structures so that people feel empowered to pursue their full potential. So that's a little bit about me. And I think the reason I bring this up again is to demonstrate to everyone that you can go from average to accomplished. And just to sort of give you the path that I took, which may be similar to one that you're taking or have taken. So where am I now? I've been very fortunate. I've built a career of impact and expertise. I've been in corporate leadership in the US for 30 years. I've worked at a bank, I've worked at a startup, I've worked at the biggest telecommunications company in the world, and now arguably one of the biggest tech companies in the world. And I've done everything from leading global teams all the way to executing projects, talent development, process improvement. So again, very, very intimately familiar with the corporate landscape in the US. And I also worked in Kenya for a few years right after high school. I'm less familiar with Kenya, and so a number of you may ask me, "Hey, how does this differ from Kenya?" But I think the skill set is going to be the same, right? In terms of academic and research, certainly this is something that's very personal to me. I had a mission to finish school, and so I went through every single scholastic, let's say, accomplishment that I could. It was more so a personal dream of mine, but then certainly through those things, I was able to acquire skills that allowed me to marry my corporate leadership skills to academic research. In terms of behavior, some people call me a behavioral expert because of my doctorate is in empowerment. I work in empowerment. I've been in people operations, talent development. I have ability to understand things and to frame things in a certain way. And then certainly, again, community is a big thing, whether it's my legacy community in Kenya or my inherited community in the US. So now that you know a little bit about me, one of the questions people ask me is, what does the jobs landscape look like? When I look at Titus, who's going through with all this career and scholastic ambitions, right? What is the promise for him? When Kevin is trying to figure out, okay, what do I need to do next? Where do I need to go, right? When Ide or Angela or any one of those hundreds of people who have reached out say, what does the jobs landscape look like? This is what I want to share. I'm going to be specific about Georgia, but then this landscape is also generalizable across other states. and probably not as much in Kenya, but I imagine there's something similar in Kenya. So here's the truth. The truth is STEM jobs in 2030 are expected to expand by almost 200,000, which is almost twice the national average. What does that mean? There's an explosion of jobs in this STEM environment. And I want to be very careful and very specific when I say in the STEM environment. That doesn't mean that you have to be in STEM. That means you have to support STEM. And I'll come back to what that means. Um, Roles are going to be reshaped. I mean, this slide is probably a year old. It was based on a report in 2025. We're in 2026. So maybe that 30 to 40% is now 40 to 50% or 50 to 60%. Jobs are going to be reshaped by AI and by automation, especially in logistics, manufacturing, finance, even in education. So that's a reality. But there's a gap. Only in Georgia, only 13, less than 14% of companies have a website, and AI literacy remains limited. Now, what does this mean? This means that, and again, this is Georgia. So when we talk about companies, we're not talking about big companies. We're talking about you have small and medium businesses, right? That don't have a website that's AI integrated, or that's even a functional website. So as you start thinking about what are the gaps where I can come in and help, think about the STEM job explosion, think about the transformation that's happening with AI, and think about the digital gap. So those are just some stats I want to throw your way. The other one that I want to throw your way is the talent, okay? You have a certain skill based on the education you acquired, but you're going to need reskilling. 50% of workers need reskilling. The idea that jobs previously would have a half-life of 5 years, now they have a half-life of 2.5 years. So what does that mean? That means the job that you have today, the title you have, probably in the next 5 years, either that job, that role profile, or that title will not exist. There is a lot of money being poured into talent development because the reality is no one has a crystal ball to say, what is the role that's going to be there 5 years from now? I like giving this story of when I was younger, when I was, I remember my son asking me this question. He said, when you were my age, this was when he was 7. When you were my age, did you always know you were going to be in tech? And I told him, brother, when I was your age, there was no tech. There was no career in tech. They weren't even computers the way they exist today. I mean, the notion of a computer, I didn't even know it in high school, right? But here I am in tech being shaped by what the computers have brought. In the same way, I always talk about this prompt engineering. That wasn't even a thing 5 years ago. Who knew what a prompt engineer was, right? So there's all these roles that are continuing to change and shift, and there's this desire to develop talent to be able to fit those jobs. And then there's online learning, right? The market for online learning is huge. And I'll tell you why it's huge in a second. But what I want you to take from this slide is this. If these people are pouring money into online learning and to talent development, then there's something that people are seeing about the need for upskilling for you to be able to take advantage of the jobs of the future. Now let's talk about, now we've seen sort of the job landscape. Let's talk about the realities of money, right? And again, this is more Georgia, so certainly it's probably different in other states, and it's likely different in Kenya, but again, the idea is the same. You have some people who are earning, uh, you know, average mean wage in Georgia, and in this case, let's say the mean wage is 64,000, the median wage is 47,000, which means there's some people earning 10, 15, 20,000. Then there's some people up there earning like 80, 90, $100,000, right? And This is a staggering statistic because when you think about the people on the left, and then you think about the people on the right, people who are earning six figures, and that's just from their salary, not even talking about bonus, not even talking about any stock options or anything additional that they're making. The question is, what is it that the people on the right are doing that the people on the left haven't done? So I'm going to give you a question mark over there. What is it that differentiates someone who's making a mean wage and someone who's making a professional or chief executive type wage? The reality is, most of you who are in college, most college graduates face the average wage. They're coming into an average wage, which does not reflect their true potential, which does not reflect their true potential. And so upskilling is absolutely non-negotiable. If you come in and you have a computer science degree, well done. You come in and you have a degree in nursing, well done. You come in and you have a degree in manufacturing operations, well done. That's a degree that you have, and that is a prized possession in terms of domain expertise. But that's not what's going to take you to the next level. What's going to take you to the next level is upskilling and figuring out how to take advantage of the degree that you have by upskilling yourself to provide value to companies and to others. And we're going to talk about that soon. And so even those who are running businesses, and they are seeking to get out of the corporate rat race and start businesses, the reality is you require more money as you run a business than if you were salaried. So what that means for those of you who are saying, well, Ichi, I'm done with corporate life, I'm going to start a business because this is where my income's going to come from, kudos to you. But remember, upskilling is required, whether you're in corporate or whether you're an entrepreneur. And I know that for a fact. My wife owns a business. I'm a partner in that business, and I see the upskilling that I have in corporate, how we're able to leverage it in running the business. What about AI? What is AI? AI, artificial intelligence, ask a question, get an answer. Companies, the tech giants, Google, Amazon, Microsoft, Meta, NVIDIA, Netflix, whoever those companies are spending 1 trillion, that's trillion with a T, trillion with a T, on infrastructure to support AI. That means, let me maybe help for those of you who hear infrastructure and you're like, okay, what does that mean when it comes to tech? Imagine if you were building a city, okay? And in your mind, you visualize that this city would have all these buildings and interconnected, right? The buildings interconnected with roads, okay? Roads. And so you have to come up with a way of ensuring that those roads can interconnect, well, let's say multiple cities, can interconnect those multiple cities and those multiple buildings. Those roads that interconnect all those cities, the buildings that are in all those cities, that's what we call infrastructure. And so for AI, when you as a person are using ChatGPT, Claude, obviously I want you to use Gemini. When you're using any of those tools, you are essentially taking advantage of an infrastructure that has been built or is being built. Remember, the buildings and the roads to get to those buildings in the city and interconnecting those cities. That's the infrastructure I'm talking about. How does that translate in AI world? The person on the left is you, Titus, you, Kevin, me, any of us using a device to access AI, right? The thing that's in the box in black, that's the infrastructure I'm talking about. That request goes through a massive array of networks, goes to a building called a data center, which has all these machines, goes inside the building to this data center hall that has all this equipment and wires and racks and switches and machines, and then ultimately gets to the picture at the bottom left, which is an NVIDIA chip. So NVIDIA chip, user, and this is the infrastructure. So all this is the opportunity I'm talking about. There's so much opportunity because of AI, because a lot of people are needed to build these networks, to construct these buildings, to put this network together, to build these racks, to do all the wiring once it's there, to do the cooling, to do the thermal assessment, to do the mechanical engineering, to retrofit the data center so these things can fit in. You have all these people who have to do the cabling, who have to interconnect this, who have to build the trays where the fiber goes to, who have to create this, whatever ceiling trays where all of this is done. All this is the massive opportunity I'm talking about. I will acknowledge that right here, there's an opportunity, and that's what people see. People say, I will be a content creator. I'm going to use AI to do A, B, C, D. Yes, you have my friend, Dr. Marco Uma, who has created AI agents for immigration services, right? I want to move to a country. You can use Navismart AI that Dr. Marco Uma created for that. I have my friend Kuhumba, who does AI for small businesses to help them create workflows for that. I have a lot of friends who are on this side creating services to leverage AI. And you can be part of that. But what I'm talking about when I talk about the $1 trillion investment is right here, which means this is where there's a lot of jobs that are being created so that they can support AI. And what do those opportunities look like? You have everything from data center technicians to negotiators, to asset managers, to construction people, to facilities managers, to mechanical engineers, electrical engineers. You have commodity managers, you have corporate counsel, you have lawyers, you have manufacturing engineers. You have all these people who come together to make this work. And then you have that person who is responsible for making sure that all these people are connected and understand the vision of what you're creating. And those are called technical program managers. So I know I've talked a lot, but I hope this grounds you in where I'm going with this discussion about the opportunities that exist, regardless of where you are. Let me say one more thing. I talked about people who are leveraging AI to create services that are there for others. But you may ask, okay, Ichi, I'm a nurse. How does that help me? Or I'm in data analytics. How does that help me? Or I'm in data visualization. How does that help me? I'm a lawyer. How does that help me? I'm a salesperson. I'm a realtor. I'm a healthcare manager. Okay, no matter what career you are in, over the next few months, and definitely over the next coming years, you will be asked or you will be required to leverage AI for your job. So if you're in healthcare, if you're a nurse, as an example, you'll be asked, how can you use AI for your job? If you're a program manager, you'll be asked, how can you use AI for your job? If you're a college instructor, how can you use AI for your job? That's one thing you'll be asked. The thing that I want you to think about is, before you're asked that question, how can you create that mentality to say, I'm going to look at this process that I use for bringing a patient from when they get to the ER to when they're stepped down to the main ward, and I'm going to find out how I can leverage AI for that process. Maybe it's people signing on to an app before they come to the hospital. I don't know. I'm not even going to offer solutions. But the point is, that is where your opportunity exists to leverage AI. And that's where your earning opportunity exists. So let me go back to how you do it. We need to take advantage of this opportunity, guys, and the three things that I talk about all the time and I'll spend a little bit of time talking about is you have to upskill. Your skill set has to change. You have to master value creation skills, not just execution skills. Your mindset has to change. You have to figure out how to change your mindset. And there's a framework that I follow that I want to share with you. And then lastly, you need to be able to articulate your value worth. That means you need to be able to have conversations where you say, I want this job. I deserve this job. I want to be the people earning money on the right-hand side because here's the value that I can provide to you. And I'll walk you through what that means. Upskilling is non-negotiable. Upskilling is non-negotiable. I do not care what technical degree you have. And by technical degree, I mean just whether you have a degree in accounting, in finance, in interior design, in nursing, I think I've said that, in tech, or whatever tech means to anyone, in banking, in operations, supply chain management, logistic services, whatever degree you have, that you own it and that will never be taken away from you. But I'm talking about upskilling, which means how can I use that degree and upskill so I can show that I can provide value? And there's three that you can do to upskill to show value. The three value creation skills are program management, process engineering, and leadership. Program management, process engineering, and leadership. These are value creation skills. Okay? That means each one of these show and demonstrate that you can create value for an organization. And if you create value for an organization, then you get rewarded accordingly. And that translates to higher salary, getting a job, career shifting, leadership, etc. What do those three things mean? Program management is basically taking something from concept to completion. You create value by aligning multiple projects with strategic goals. So if you're given the project of constructing all these roads that are going to interconnect cities, you're creating value. If you're taking a process that is highly manual and you're automating it through a program management framework, then you're creating value. You achieve cost savings because you're providing efficient resource allocation, you're mitigating risks, and most importantly, you're delivering on. Okay? Thank you, Titus. You are delivering on time. Those of you who are familiar with this is a phone, right? iPhone, but it could be any type of phone. If you are the program manager who's responsible for launching iPhone 18, whatever it is, you have a schedule that you need to meet because millions of customers worldwide need to buy that phone. And so if you're the person who's bringing all these teams together, engineering, supply chain, the devices, salespeople, all these people together so that you can make sure that this is launched on time, that's what program management is about. You get cost savings through efficient resource allocation, you improve productivity, you contribute to long-term growth. In some cases, because a new technology has been introduced and you bring it to your company, you're fostering innovation and you are accelerating revenue because this phone now is launched on time and therefore Apple is able to make a lot of money. So program management is one of the skills that you need to be able to upskill to and is a highly lucrative career skill for all those people who are doing program management. The second skill that I would like to defend is this notion of process engineering. What does that mean? That means looking at a process end to end and trying to figure out how can I make it simpler, shorter, and more automated so that I can save the company money. So process engineering is introduced to increase profitability and drive shareholder value improve the customer experience. It's a competitive differentiator. It drives innovation. And how does it do that? By reducing lead time and increasing productivity. A simple example is back in the day when we needed to send an application for something. Actually, I'll give you a very good example. I remember um, applying for a passport, right? Applying for a passport, you had to go to the post office, get these forms, fill these forms out, blah, 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 blah. Then take the forms, go take a picture, and then go all the way to the post office, line up for like 5 hours just to give that, application form that you filled out. And by the way, maybe when you're filling out, you made a mistake in the spelling, or your wording is not legible, and so then they say, you've made a mistake here. Then you have to fill out the form again. And then by the time you put it in, then suddenly it takes like 3 months to get a passport, right? That was the process before. So you had someone who knows process engineering come in and say, wait, what if we cut these two parts? What if instead of doing a paper application, we make it online? What if we allow people to upload pictures? What if allow people to do digital signatures? And then what if we process it in our plant where it takes a week instead of 6 weeks to get the passport? And then boom, you go from 3 months to get a passport to my last experience getting a passport was less than a week getting a passport, right? So these people who do process engineering through a very disciplined approach called DMAIC, define, measure, analyze, improve, control, are able to bring value to the company, bring value to a customer, and therefore they are rewarded and paid accordingly. And the last skill, certainly not the last skill you need to acquire, but in the context of what I'm talking about of upskilling, there's program management, taking a program or project from concept to completion, therefore increasing value. Second was reducing the amount of time it takes to go from reducing the amount of lead time by process engineering what that process is, something that took 3 months, making sure that it can be done in a day. The biggest one, or the third one, is advanced leadership. Leadership meaning being able to create value by setting a clear vision for a team, making sure you apply efficient resourcing for the team, making sure you build strong relationships with other teams, fostering a culture of innovation, creating a work environment where people can perform their best. Out of these three skills, program management, process engineering, and advanced leadership, which one is the most needed? All three. All three. I've been very fortunate to be in all three of them. And I tell you what, all these three skills provide value. And when people are asking you, what have you done? Why should I hire you? Why should I pay you this amount of money? You need to be able to say, I've created value by taking programs from concept to completion. I have provided value to the company, to companies, by showing that we can increase productivity and reduce lead time by looking at processes from beginning to end and figuring out how to reduce the amount of time it takes, at the same time increasing customer value. And yes, I have led global teams, bringing people together so that we can achieve the targets for the company. And as a function of that, I have helped drive shareholder value. So being able to articulate based on that skill set is going to be a game changer for you. So in addition to the upskilling, program management, process improvement, and leadership, mindset is a big thing. A lot of the people that I meet, good, bad, or indifferent, are going through different phases in their lives. And because of that, there's some fear and about being bold in taking steps towards what it is that they want to achieve. And so when I talk to people, it's not just the upskilling that I preach, it's the mindset. How can I help you reframe some of those challenges you have? or reframe why it's stopping you from going to where you are to where you want to be. And one of the things that I've I've done over the last few years is to try and develop a framework that helps people through that journey, and I call it the fumble framework. Um, Fumble in American football is when you receive a pass and you know that you're going to get it, like you can feel it. And then as soon as it gets to your hand, you drop it and you mess up. That's what fumble means. And sometimes people see fumble as, oh my goodness, that person messed up, worst person in our lives. But I choose to reframe that to say fumble is not something that should dictate who you are. Fumble is an opportunity to shift your mindset. So, what do each of those letters in fumble mean? F means to face your fear, acknowledge and confront anxieties and doubts. A lot of you, one of the things that's maybe stopping you from applying for that job, taking the next step in upskilling, is because you have fear. You're like, hey, I'm so scared. I don't know what to do. Well, you have to face your fear. And there's a lot of things that I can do to help you with that. The second thing is you have to get unstuck. A lot of people keep hitting their head against the wall, doing the same thing over and over again and saying, how can I get better? Getting unstuck or getting stuck can make you feel very overwhelmed. I have very many people who've reached out to me who say, I've been applying for jobs. I've been applying for jobs. I've been applying for jobs. I'm like, okay, let's take a step back, breathe. Let's break it down and see what type of jobs are you applying for? The job that you're applying for, does it demonstrate the skill set that you have? Is it what's needed for this job? Are you looking at the wrong place? Oh, I'm not in tech. Well, the reality is maybe 30 to 40% of people in tech companies have no idea about tech. You have people in human resources, legal, compliance, sales, negotiations, have never seen a computer. Half of what I've told you today, they don't even know, but yet they work in a tech company. Oh, so I can actually apply for a job at Google? Yes, you can. You're a salesperson, you're a negotiator, you're a lawyer, you're a global mobility person, you're in logistics and supply chain, you're in mechanical engineering, you're a thermal engineer, you are CAD, CAD, computer, whatever, computer aided design, I think it's what they call it, right? Like people who know how to draw floor plans. We need those people who are in construction, security guards, people who are in security, people who onboard vendors, people who are in hospitality to make sure that people have a place to stay when they move. I mean, they are literally thousands of jobs that are going to help with AI, right? Because all those people are going to enable AI with or without AI. But you have to get unstuck and see, oh, yeah, there's actually a different path to the destination. Third one is manage your mindset, the M. It's not just about fixed mindset or growth mindset. It's about infinite mindset. It's about self-awareness, viewing failures as learning opportunities, and just reframing things so that you can go to the next step of being bold. Being bold means raising your hand and saying, I'm going to apply for this job. I'm going to speak up. I'm going to share my idea. I'll tell you a personal story. Well, when I was in college, right? One of the many colleges I went to, like I said, my kids are always like, funny, you were held back because it took you 20 years to finish college. I'm like, yeah, But one of the things that I would do is I would sit in the front row in class, and I still do it today. I go for panel discussion, engagement, summit, seminar. I always sit in front. I always lift my hand up and ask a question, even when I know the answer. If I don't know the answer, I'm bold enough, or I've built that boldness intentionally so that I'm not shy about asking a question and looking stupid. If I do know the answer, I raise my hand up because I'm very confident that someone over there had the same question to ask and may not know the answer. And also, people notice my confidence when I raise my hand. And that has always helped me, even in advancing in my career. So being bold is a mindset that we need to have. Taking ownership of actions and decisions, making uh, leadership decisions, using vision to inspire yourself and others, developing self knowledge of what type of leader you are. That way, when you're faced with a decision, you acknowledge the advantages you have with your leadership skill set and the gaps that you have with your leadership skill set. Again, I'll be transparent. One of the things that I'm not good at is making quick decisions. I'm that guy who you say, hey, what would it take for us to do ABC? And I think about it. I'm like, well, to do A, you need to do this. Then you need to do B. Then you need to do this. In the meantime, people are knocking and saying, make a decision, make a decision. I'm like, wait. I have to think about C. And if C fails, how does B then get impacted? And how does A get impacted? I'm sure some of you out there are the same. You're like, you want to be sure and have certainty when making that decision. But the reality is, some decisions need to be made quickly. So the lead mindset is not just saying, I'm a leader, it's acknowledging what you're good at and recognizing where you can improve. And if you're not that type of leader who makes quick decisions, especially in this environment, then you have to practice what it's going to take to make those quick decisions. And then the last one is execute. At the end of the day, no matter how much you say, I wish, I want, execution means I will do it. I have to do it. I'm going to take that step. I'm going to measure myself. Exactly. Bias to action. And I think a lot of us, I don't want to generalize, but there's a lot of truth in generalization. A lot of us, especially Kenyans, we grew up very, I want to say very passively. We're very, we take our time, we try and figure things out, we want to be perfect. But this landscape doesn't allow for that. But you have to then create a mindset in yourself so that when that decision needs to be made, you have done all the madafu behind so that you can immediately run to execute. So anyway, first thing I talked about was the skill set and upskilling. Second thing I'm talking about is the mindset. And finally, the last is strategy. Strategy nails it. I've upskilled, yes. My mental model is good, yes. But how do you then articulate it so you can get an interview, get a job, and nail the job? You have to figure out the things you're good at, the things you like, and the things that are useful. Those three things are mutually exclusive, which means that those three things do not have to be the same, but you have to know them. There are some people who are good at some things, really good, but that's not the things that they like or the things that are useful. Okay. I learned very early on that I was somewhat good in tech, and I'll use tech as a broad term. I knew how to figure out things that users were not good at when it came to back in the day, using Microsoft Word or whatever was there before it. What was there before Microsoft? WordStar. Anyway, I'm not even going to date myself. Lotus 123, Excel. Like, I was good at those things. Those are not things that I liked. And in fact, today, I love this more than I love tech. But there's the things that I like, which is this: behavior, people, personality, things. But the things that I'm good at are tech. And the things that are useful right now are tech. So the thing that I'm going to focus on is tech in terms of making a living. And so that's what I need all of you to do, is to recognize that there are things you like, there are things that you're good at, but more importantly, there are things that are useful. And the things that are useful are the ones that provide value and the ones that people are going to pay you for. And once you realize that, then I need you to be able to talk about it. Your LinkedIn profile has to be tip top. You have to show your landings. What did you land? What did I land? I landed this multi-million-dollar project. What was the impact? This multi-million dollar project reduced cycle time from 15 days to 1 day, resulting in revenue acceleration because we were able to go to market faster than anyone else. How did you do it? I brought a team of cross-functional people together, everyone from engineering all the way to product development to sales. And I was able to create this cohesive cross-functional team that I worked with for 18 months. Why was that? What was like, by the way, what was the business problem? The business problem was it was just taking us long to launch a product, right? When you start with landings, someone pays attention. When you start with what was the business problem, people get bored. Let me repeat that. When you start with landings, people pop up. They're like, now they're interested in knowing you. If you start with what the business problem was, people get bored, which is very counterintuitive for what we were taught. We were taught, state the business problem, state your process of solving it, state what the impact was, state what the landing was. People don't have time to go through that. So start with the landing. I developed a web page in 5 hours that reduced the amount of, that increased the traffic for users from 5% to 100%. Wow, now I'm interested. Now I can read about the how and the why. Half of getting a job, getting promoted, comes from already doing the things that you do. People are already doing all these things. The other half is in telling the story. So strategy is being able to articulate the story, articulate your value worth through the story. And you have to provide evidence by what it is that you have accomplished. You see, it's not about you, it's about your value worth. What does the other person, organization, company, client perceive about the value you can create for them? When you go out and you interview, when you go out and you start a business, when you go out and you're trying to gather customers, when you go out and you're trying to do all this stuff, it's not about what you think about yourself. It's about the person on the other side saying, I'm willing to pay this person $250,000 a year because I think they're going to bring me more value than I'm paying them. I want you to think about that. I'm willing to pay this person $250,000 a year because they're going to bring me more value than what I'm paying them. Versus, hey, pay me $250,000. Why? Yeah, because I've always liked to work. I've always wanted to be in tech. I've always wanted to be in Google. I've always wanted, it's not about you. It's about the value that the other person sees in what it is that you're articulating. So how do you do that? Again, I go back to SMS, your skill set, your mindset, and your strategy. Imagine if your resume said something like, I led planning and execution for 1.5 billion global cloud transformation, impacting 5,000 applications across 26 countries. I delivered 100 million in cost savings and a 70% increase in revenue through strategic planning. I built a global team of 250 plus across product engineering, data, and security. I created and institutionalized an agile portfolio governance, OKRs, and KPIs across 11 alliances. I led planning and execution integrations for 4 billion in acquisitions. I accelerated revenue by 12 million and savings of 2.3 million. I reduced percentage of escalated customer cases by 75%. You are expressing your landings, you're expressing your impact, and you're expressing the value that you provided to that company. This is what your profile needs to read. Your profile doesn't need to read, yes, I'm interested in working in a tech company so I can achieve my highest potential. I don't care. I'll care about that after you get hired. And so I want you to be very honest with yourself and say, does my profile speak value or does my profile speak what I want out of life? If it speaks what I want out of life, put it on Facebook. If it speaks the value that I can provide for you, put it on LinkedIn. So I've talked a lot, but I'm going to wrap up and then open it up in case you have any questions. So, again, going back to my career, right? One of the things that I've been very fortunate to do is to be that person who's moved from executor to leader, right? Um, I've done hundreds of interviews at all levels, right? From people who are data center technicians starting their careers, all the way to senior executives who are going to the next level. Um, I've taught thousands of students, undergrad, grad, post grad, and I very much understand the landscape, the academic landscape, the upskilling landscape. I'm part of this team here in Atlanta trying to figure out what the workforce needs to look like in the next few years because of AI. As a result of that, I'm able to see the problems businesses have, the problems colleges are having, and where the gap exists. Um, I've attended and been promoted several times, so I understand the different roles and what that means. I've received, hundreds of rewards and recognition, which has resulted in money, right? Sometimes these rewards and recognition actually mean that you're getting more money, whether it's merit increase bonuses or just sport bonuses, which are in some cases quite a lot of money, right? I've helped develop talent from career entry to leadership. Um, Hundreds of mentees from multiple companies, including the major tech companies, right? Microsoft, Alphabet, Amazon, Meta, right? Um, in the board seat of the largest technology organization in the Southeast. So every day I get all these insights on where tech is going. And so I can see the future of tech. I've been in a lot of panel discussions, like I said, everything from digital equity in rural areas to value creation. And I love reading research, and that's where I guess one of my differentiators is that I have both an academic and a practitioner mindset, and I marry the two. So I'll never come to you saying, hey, this is how it happens in practice, but there's no research to back it up, or be so academic and say this is how it should be, yet there's no experiential learning to back it up. Um, I've been fortunate. I've received a number of awards. Actually, most recently, 100 Black Men Education. Last year, I got the Shuja Award, which is one of my favorite because it came from my fellow countrymen. And then, Google Impact Awards in tech, in being able to take things to market quickly. And when I talk about upskilling, right, you saw at the beginning that I do have um, advanced education, so to speak. But that didn't stop me from doing certifications that would upskill me. So I have upskilled in program management. I have upskilled in process improvement. I have upskilled in a lot of things. So one of the things that I say is very early on in my career, I took advantage of Microsoft certifications, Cisco certifications. For those of you who maybe that's old school, there's GCP, there's Google Cloud certification. So there's all these certifications that you should take to be able to enhance yourself and your profile. So I've talked for about 55 minutes or so, nonstop. So I want to open it up for any questions. Again, this is a good space where you can ask pretty much any question. So I'll I'll open it up. I'll give it some uncomfortable silence, and then I'll do my wrap up. So any questions?